Move on to our stand in the gap moment. We've been trying to focus. This is our second week on the on Black History Month, and we focused last time on Martin Luther King. If you get a chance, go back and take a look at that video. I think Marvel sent the link around. Is that right, Marvel?
Yes, the link is on last week's class on the live stream.
Okay.
All three links actually. The
Okay.
former slaves, Martin Luther King, and Malcolm X.
All right, those were our Black History focuses, portraits for last week, and we're going to get into it. And as we get into it, it's kind of coincidental that in the study we're landing on the Black Muslims, and that is part of our history, our Black history, and so it kind of coincides. But I want to move into our standing in the gap moment. So there you go. And what we're focusing on this week in our standing in the gap moment. And remember, the standing gap moment is standing on the truth. We try to set aside a little time at the beginning so that we can focus on a particular issue that's different sometimes from the actual study. And we spend a little time on that, but we will get into Black Muslims and the cross and the crescent. So just hang in there. Just hang in there. We're gonna get there. And I want to start this off, this stand in the gap moment, as we stand in the gap between God and the people. I ask you a question: is this America? This is our celebration of Black history, and as a Black people, we've been in America for over 400 years and all that. And you would think that over 400 years things would have progressed to a certain point. And I ask the question: is this America? But if you ask the question, is this America? You also ask the question, well, what is America? I mean, we have our view of America. Democrats have their view of America. The Republicans have theirs. But what is the true America? And who is it that said that when somebody tells you who they are, to believe them? When somebody gives you all the information you need so that you'll know who they are, believe them, what they say. I think it was Nikki Giovanni.
Actually, I think it was Ayana.
Who?
Ayana Vazant. Go on. But it wasn't Nikki.
It wasn't Nikki.
No,
okay.
I think it was. No, it might have been. Well, whoever it was a smart lady.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a smart lady. You know, one of the worst things that came out of that Capitol riot. You know, I mean, you look at history unfold before you, and always say sometimes it's better to read about history than to actually go through it. But one of the clear things that came out of the Capitol riots was clear evidence that a large part of our country remains staunchly racist and justifies their racism by what they call their belief in God. And sure, they're wrong and definitely don't know their own religion, but it is evidence that in some ways we've not come very far from slave days, when whites justified slavery with the Bible.
Sister Michelle said it was Maya Angelou.
Thank
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And yesterday, the Congress honored one of the Capitol police officers. I think his name was Goodwin, Officer Goodwin, for his heroics during the resurrection. He was a Black Capitol police officer, and they honored him for his heroic saving lives and calm, steady hand and all that, and rightfully so. It's a great story. It's a great American story. But there is another story at the other end of the spectrum, and it too is the American story. Let me move to a that story.
In this kaleidoscope of sadness and terror and violence, one of our Capitol officers who defended us that day was a longtime veteran of our force, a brave and honorable public servant who spent several hours battling the mob as part of one of those blue lines defending the Capitol in our democracy. For several hours straight, as the marauders punched and kicked and mauled and spit upon and hit officers with baseball bats and fire extinguishers, cursed the cops, and stormed our Capitol, he defended us, and he lived every minute of his oath of office. And afterwards, overwhelmed by emotion, he broke down in the rotunda. And he cried for 15 minutes. And he shouted out, "I got called an N-word 15 times today." And then he reported, "I sat down with one of my buddies, another black guy, and tears just started streaming down my face. And I said, 'What the F, man? Is this America?'" That's the question before all of you in this trial. Is this America? Can our country and our democracy ever be the same if we don't hold accountable the person responsible for inciting the violent attack against our country, our capital, and our democracy, and all of those who serve us so faithfully and honorably? Is this America?
So the question comes down to, okay, what is America? I mean, that word that they use for that officer 15 times as he's protecting the democracy of the United States of America. He was called, and you know, we use this word, we say the N word because we don't want to hear the whole word and all that kind of stuff. But see, a lot of times when you say the N word, you're trying to take the brunt off of it or the edge off of it. And sometimes the edge needs to be there. N word stands for nigger. It stands for that. And it's a label that shows what the user thinks of the person to whom he's directing this slur at. When white men use it, they feel that they're separating themselves in a superior way from a black person. This is definitely what America was, and clearly what it still is. When it's used, the person is telling you who they are. Believe them. Believe them. Also believe what James says in the Bible about the tongue. It corrupts the whole person. It sets the course of his life on fire and is itself set on fire by hell. And then says, but no man can tame the tongue. It is a restless evil, full of deadly poison. With the tongue we praise our Lord and Father, and with it we curse men who've been made in God's image. So if you call us a nigger, then you're calling God a nigger. Now, here's what, as we stick to our focus on black history, here's what James Baldwin had to say about that word.
Well, I know this. Anyone who's ever tried to live knows this. But what you say about somebody else, anybody else, reveals you. What I think of you as being is dictated by my own necessity, my own psychology, my own fears and desires. I'm not describing you when I talk about you. I'm describing me. Now here in this country, we've got something called a nigger. It doesn't in such terms, I beg you to remark, exist in any other country in the world. We have invented the nigger. I didn't invent him. White people invented him. I've always known, I had to know by the time I was 17 years old. What you were describing was not me, and what you were afraid of was not me. It has to be something else. You invented it, so it has to be something you were afraid of. And you invested me with. Now that's so. No matter what you've done to me, I can say to you this, and I mean it. I know you can't do any more, and I've got nothing to lose. And I know, and I've always known. No. And really always. That's part of the agony. I've always known that I'm not a nigger. But if I am not the nigger, and if it's true that your invention reveals you, then who is the nigger? I'm not the victim here. I know one thing from another. And I know I'm going to born and I'm going to be, I was born, I'm going to suffer, and I'm going to die. The only way you get through life is to know the worst things about it. I know that a person is more important than anything else. Anything else. I learned this because I've had to learn it. But you still think, I gather, that the nigger is necessary. Well, it's unnecessary to me, so it must be necessary to you. So I give you your problems back. You're the nigger, baby, it isn't me.
All right. So, the only thing I have to say about that, because remember, we're standing in the gap right now, in our stand in the gap moment. If the Bible is what you believe, then how should we respond to those who refer to us as niggers? You see, for Black History Month, I'm asking you a question. We know what others think of us when they call us that. And the poet says you should believe them. Now, let's focus on what do we do when we call ourselves that? Mm-hmm. You see, since slavery time, that word became so common and it was directed at us so much, we kind of incorporated it into our psyche. And so we use the word maybe more than the white man uses the word now. And, it was just a part of America's psyche, as a matter of fact. Because I looked at Merriam-Webster dictionary to see what it said about the word nigger, and it calls it an insult used against black people and all that kind of thing. And I do understand it, but I remember that is not the first time I looked up what that word meant. And years ago when I looked at it, it didn't focus so much on that. It focused on a lazy, uneducated person. But now times have changed, so they've taken that out and they've put in a more politically acceptable definition of the word. But the point is this: why do we call ourselves that? I decided a long time, I'm not going to call my brother that. As we were coming up, we used the word, let's admit it, we use it all the time for ourselves. And then as time went along, we started to allow it to be used by people of other races toward us. They say, that's my nigger, and all that kind of thing. And they'll say, well, I don't mean it in a derogatory sense. And, well, yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. So the bottom line, you say about this stand in the gap moment, stand in the gap on this point about using this word or any words really to denigrate people. But definitely this one, because we're in Black History Month. We should never allow that word to come out of our mouths about ourselves, and we should not allow anybody else accept it from anybody else either. Don't use it ever again. Don't accept it ever again. All right. That's our standing. I hope that resonates a little bit.
Yeah, I stopped using it too. Well, I'll tell you when I stopped using it. When my daughter was born. When my daughter was born, I said that she's not going to hear that word coming out of my mouth talking about anybody. But Sister Michelle said, you know, people used to use it to refer to an ignorant person.
Exactly. But understand, when they used it to refer to an ignorant person, they were trying to put the blackness on whoever they were talking about. They weren't separating ignorant from black. Right. They were saying, we know blacks are ignorant. Why are you acting ignorant? And so, I mean, don't be fooled by any of that. All right. Don't use it and don't accept it.
Don't accept it is number one.
All right. Now let's